When I think of banking in Texas, I think of Jody Grant. His long-term success in this volatile economy is no doubt due to his sharp analytical mind and unrivaled knowledge of the industry, which seems to change daily. Jody is not only an astute business banker, but he's quite a leader when it comes to endeavors in his communities. And when there's a need arises, Jody's always there to volunteer his efforts. He has this competitive edge about him, but he also has a very humble heart. That's what I love about the man. And I would like to take this moment to introduce Jody Grant as the newest member of the Texas Business Hall of Fame.
You never know where life lessons will come from. Jody Grant learned many of his from the water.
Swimming was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. The lessons I learned from that, I think, really created the foundation that has made me successful.
Jody was attending school at Southern Methodist University. It was there at SMU that he met the future Mrs. Jody Grant and found mentors that helped him obtain his first job with Citibank in New York. After 5 successful years with Citibank, Jody made a decision that some people simply didn't understand.
Citibank was a revelation for me. This nagging feeling that maybe my competitive edge wasn't quite as good as it needed to be. So that's when I decided, and with my wife Sheila's full approval, to go back to the University of Texas and pursue a PhD.
The newly pronounced Dr. Grant joined Texas Commerce Bank in Houston and then moved to Texas American Bank Shares, where he inherited the 6th largest banking organization in Texas during a devastating time in the banking industry, 1986.
I didn't know it at the time, but I had been given the helm of the Titanic, and the Titanic had already hit the iceberg and was destined to sink. This was a really rough patch in the lives of all bankers in Texas at the time. We lost 9 of the 10 largest banks in Texas, either to merger or failure. It was a devastating experience, and you learn when something as bad as happened to all of us in the 1980s, you call on every coping skill that you ever thought you had. So I began keeping a journal, much to some of the attorneys' dismay, because they don't like for you to have a lot of records in case you get sued. I turned that journal into a book called The Great Texas Banking Crash, and that provided the foundation for the next step in my life.
But first, he had the opportunity to recover some of the setbacks of the 80s, and in 1990 was offered the CFO position at Electronic Data Systems.
At EDS, I had just a marvelous experience there. In addition to it being a life raft and a lifesaver for me, the job was incredibly interesting. EDS was on the leading edge of the technology services business.
EDS was the vessel he needed to deliver him to his next successful endeavor.
I envisioned something that nobody had ever done before, and that was to raise $100 million to create a new bank. I didn't delude myself into thinking that I was a savior of the banking business, but I thought that there was a place for a new bank, particularly one that focused on commercial business. And so I began to develop a blueprint for a bank, and it ultimately, that blueprint became Texas Capital Bank.
Grant's initiative was to create a commercial bank, one that was able to address the middle market sector of Texas business and capable of offering a generous lending limit. At the time, he served as international president of the Young Presidents Organization, which opened the door to many networking opportunities. So with the help of his generous YPO colleagues, Grant's vision was realized. The bank posted double-digit growth in its early years and became the first company in Texas to complete an IPO in 2003.
Texas Capital has been remarkably successful. I never would have dreamed that starting from zero on December 17, 1998, that today we would have a $10 billion bank without any acquisitions, just from organic growth.
Having worked with Jody through the worst of times in Texas banking in the 80s, through this very prosperous time with Texas Capital Bank, I'd have to say, yeah, Jody Grant has changed banking, the way it's done, particularly in Texas.
So I think he built it, number one, as a business opportunity, but really, number two, even more important than that, I think to him was sort of a comeback, a vindication. Well, by golly, we've all been driven off the field by some circumstances largely beyond our control. We'll recreate it, and he did that with Texas Capital, and he did it very successfully.
You know, we want to not collect clients or collect employees. We want to build an extraordinary business, which means partners, both inside the company, they work with each other, and externally as your clients. And I think that's a fundamental change in how banking has been done in the past.
And if you look around Dallas, you'll notice other fundamental changes inspired by Grant. One of the most noticeable has helped unite the city.
I spent 9 years, again, with a team of wonderful people in one of the greatest public-private partnerships that I could imagine. And the end result has been a park that has become Dallas's town square. People of great diversity coming together and having a good time. And seeing these kids play together is just one of the most satisfying things that has ever happened to me.